Hello everyone and welcome to P3 Mastery. Today we're going to be covering what exactly is Moscow prioritization, how it affects projects and why it's so integral to an agile project. One of the best ways to think of Moscow prioritization is it's the key element that makes agile projects distinctive from other project management disciplines. Now, we should all know that Moscow stands for must have, should have, could have, and won't have this time. But how do we apply these, and how do these four elements make an agile project distinctive? Well, first of all, think of it this way. If we look at traditional project management frameworks, we have our triangle of scope: time, cost, and quality. Time, cost, and quality are the three elements that make up the scope of a project. So how does that work? If your time changes, then the scope of the project has changed. In other words, you're running over time, then the scope's changed. If you exceed your budget, if your cost changes, then the scope of the project's changed. And if you underdeliver or the quality of the output changes, the product itself changes, you go off specification, then your quality's changed and the scope has changed once again. So this is your scope triangle. It's almost impossible, we know that, for a project to deliver on time, within budget, and perfect quality, all in accordance to the plan that was set at the start of the project. We all know that is almost impossible. So what you find in most traditional project frameworks is that they'll manage this by having exceptions and tolerance. So let's say we'll have a 25% contingency for our time. If it's a 6-week project, we've got flexibility to move up to 8 weeks. We've got a 25% contingency in terms of our costs and our quality. So in terms of the costs, we've got all the budget, we've got this little contingency pot that you can dip into when you need it. Now, when it comes to an agile project, Agile does away with this whole idea of contingencies, because an agile project must deliver on time, it will never exceed its budget, and it will never compromise quality. Okay, these are 3 principles that are a part of Agile. Agile doesn't play with time, cost, or quality. Those elements are fixed. So where does an agile project get its flexibility from? It gets its flexibility from features. Now, features is almost an additional element that's added into agile projects that run under the DSDM framework. The features that an agile project adds allow for flexibility. One of the things that you might ask yourself at this stage, or you might have noticed, is that there seems to be a relationship between quality and features. You know, aren't they essentially the same thing? If you're changing the features of a project, you're changing the quality. Normally that would be the case, but in an agile project that's not the case, and that's all because of Moscow prioritization. And what Moscow allows you to do is to group these features and these requirements in order of must have, should have, could have, and won't have this time. There is no compromise in quality because all of the things that are delivered to specification. However, there's flexibility in what is delivered. Now, this is going to make more sense as we go through the acronym of Moscow. At this point, what I'd like you to do is hit the like button if you're learning something new, and subscribe if you haven't done that already. This is a brand new channel and I'm going to be bringing out these videos covering project management concepts, business studies concepts, things that will help you to learn and to improve your understanding as a project manager or business manager. So please do subscribe if you haven't done that already. Okay, back to the video. So let's go through the 4 elements of Moscow prioritization. Let's start with must have. Must have has a very simple definition: minimum usable subset. So what is a minimum usable subset? These are the things that must be delivered, otherwise the project will be deemed a failure. That's how you define a minimum usable subset. Nothing beyond that. So let's put some meat on these bones. Let's give an analogy. Let's say you're building a house. So let's say we're actually building a house on a plot of land for sale on the open market. So in this regard, putting the windows in. Okay, that's a must-have requirement. Why? Because you can't sell a house without a window. It won't go in the open market. It's unmortgageable. Okay, so these are must-have requirements. Now, what are the requirements that might have some flexibility? Well, let's look at putting a sofa in the front room. That's definitely not even, I'm not sure where that would rank, but that's certainly not a must-have requirement, because if the sofa's not there, the house is still built. Having a composite front door. Okay, we need a front door, but does it have to be composite? No, because you still be able to sell it on the open market. This all links to what the actual benefits and the value that you're seeking to establish in the house build is. Because if you were actually trying to get the highest possible value, and that was actually within your business case for this project, then we've got a bit of a different argument. But in terms of just building a house, putting it on the open market, those would kind of be your must-have requirements: walls, foundations, etc., etc. So those are your must-have requirements. Now, in terms of a DSDM project, your must-have requirements should only make up a maximum of 60% of the requirements within the project. Okay, this allows there to be time for the development of should have and could have requirements. Okay, if you have a project and at the end of it your must-have requirements are making up 80, 90 or even 95%, then that's going to be a very difficult project to manage within an agile framework. Should have and could have requirements do have a little bit of overlap, but there are some clear distinct features that help you to identify a should have requirement from a could have requirement. Well, let's look at a could have requirement first of all. Could have requirements within the DSDM framework can be de-scoped by your solution development team. So without it being escalated up to the project level, that's the board level, that's the people who are actually authorizing and sponsoring the project, without it being escalated up to them, your solution development team had the ability to take that off the table. So let's go back to the house analogy again, and let's think about what would you be willing to leave in the hands of the architect and the builders, okay? What things would you be happy for them to take out should the project be running short on time? To say, you know what, I'll defer this to your expertise. Based on your analysis of this project, you can leave this out. If you're happy to do that with a requirement, then that requirement is a could have. If this requirement is something you really, really want and it must be escalated up to you before it's changed, and it should be a should have. A should have requirement is going to feel a lot like a must have. However, if a should have requirement is not delivered, the project has not failed, because should have requirements obviously can be de-scoped, but that cannot be done without escalation up to the project level. I should just say business analyst and business visionary strictly. So without escalation up to your project level, these elements have to remain as they are. That's a good way of defining your should have and could haves. The other way that you can define between your should have and could haves is that your could haves should make up 20%, okay, at least 20% they say, but your goal should be 20% could have requirements. Why 20% could haves? Because then that 20% becomes your flexibility, okay, within the Agile project. The idea is that you want to deliver all of your must-have requirements. You want to deliver all of your should-have requirements, and you want to deliver most of your could-have requirements, but you've got the ability to then have a built-in 20% flexibility. That's under the control of the solution development team, built in within the project. Okay, so those are two good ways of defining between your should have and your could have requirements. Finally, we have won't have, and won't have is not won't have at all, it's won't have this time. And one of the things you might ask yourself is, why do we have won't have? Or why do we have won't have this time? If something's not going to be included in the project, let's just leave it out. Why have we got a list of things that we're leaving out? Because, as the name suggests, this won't have this time. And a lot of the things that make the won't have this time list can be deferred from one project increment to the next, or from one time box to the next. So you're not doing it right now, or you do it later. Or if it was a requirement that was established earlier on at a higher level in a project. Imagine you're looking for trainers, you want to buy a new pair of trainers. So you type in trainers and then you get a list of like PTs, personal trainers, gym trainers, all of these things that are not relevant to the fact that you're looking for trainers, as in sneakers, things that you wear on your feet. What you can do is you can use negative PT and negative personal trainer as negative searches or negative keywords, and they'll omit those searches from coming up in further results. So your won't have this time list almost acts as something that you can refer to as the project proceeds, to ensure that you're not going over ground that's already been covered. So for instance, going back to the example of you building a house, you found out early on roof lanterns are not allowed, and then later on in the project, let's say during the evolutionary development phase, your architect has a really smart idea. He says, oh, you know what? This little side extension we've got here, this would be a perfect place for us to build a little miniature roof lantern. It will come up in the won't have this time list, roof lanterns, not a part of this project. So now they've got that reference point that they can refer to and say, oh, no, we can't have roof lanterns It's listed here, high level, won't have requirement, shouldn't be in there. So those are your prioritizations, okay? Must have, should have, could have, and won't have this time. And if these are used effectively within an agile project, they omit the need to have contingency and management by tolerance and exception, and they allow you to manage a project effectively, always deliver on time, always deliver within budget, and never compromise in quality. You're amending or you're scaling the number of features that you're delivering based on what needs to be delivered. So that covers Moscow prioritization. I hope it's been useful for you. We'll be making much more videos like these, covering lots of different concepts across project management, from agile to other project management disciplines. If it's something that you think is going to be useful to you, please do subscribe. If it's something that's going to benefit your team, please share this with your team. And thank you for tuning in. And goodbye from Andrew at P3 Mastery.